You are now listening to the IELTS podcast. And remember to leave your email for updates.
Hello there. Hope your study's going well. I've been recording these podcasts all day. It's been good. I've got lots of information, lots of new information. Learned a lot myself. And this episode, it's with Tim again. And this is a collection of some of the best bits, because as I said before, we were talking for about 2 hours. And firstly, we talk about accents. So when I start, it's going to be talking about my accent. Then we talk about reading, then a bit of English, and then whether to use long sentences, short sentences, and so on and so forth. Quite informative, so have a listen. And then once you've listened, make sure you check out Tim's videos, his YouTube channel, and he's got quite a good video about essay writing. I think it's Zontol Films. Put that into YouTube. There's only one of those, Zontol Films, and find his video about essay writing. It's great. And after you've done that, go over to IELTSPodcast.com and of course sign up. And if you've got a few more minutes, go over to iTunes and leave a 5-star review. That'd be awesome. That'd be the best birthday present ever. I've kind of altered it a little bit for students so they don't sound like a northerner when they start speaking.
You know, sometimes I think it's a good thing to try and sound a little bit more northern, because when you come to the IELTS exam or what is it, or all these other exams, what are they? Proficiency.
Like the first and stuff like that.
They always put the oral in put these listening things in funny accents.
Yes.
And when I was doing it, they would say to me, "Could you do a Yorkshire accent?" I say, "Oh, well, I can't really do a Yorkshire accent. I mean, I always sound like Fred Truman on a bad day." It's sort of embarrassing. You should hear my American accent is even worse. But they didn't want this. They didn't want this sort of clear RP thing.
Ah, okay, I see. For the recordings, this was.
Yes, and so when you get to the recording and you always have these, particularly the children, they always say, "I couldn't hear it. I couldn't hear it, and I asked them to repeat it. Wasn't clear." Well, of course it wasn't clear. That's exactly the point, because that's why we do collocations.
Exactly.
Collocations, because in English we never finish a sentence. We get the idea out, and as long as we got eye contact and we think somebody's got the idea of what we're actually trying to say, then we stop. We go
exactly.
You know, and I would say in lessons that this is actually what people do in their own language, but it isn't. In most languages, people finish sentences. In English, we definitely don't.
Ah, okay. How do you know that? Is that from studying English, from doing your courses?
Just listening. For example, the Russians are terribly fastidious about getting their grammar right. We're not.
No.
And they think that if their grammar is right, then there must be a grammar that's correct in English, and it isn't. And then I sit down with them and I say, "Oh my God, all of this should be an interview." And suddenly it is.
Uh-huh.
But I find, for example, with the Russian students, and I know them very well.
Mm-hmm.
They'll talk to me about how difficult grammar is in Russian and how they have to work very hard at it. And I understand, and I know a little bit, not very much. I've forgotten everything really. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to English, I have to say, well, you know, the reason that that we teach English grammar is basically a business reason, because it's easier to monitor grammar than it is to monitor vocabulary. But the thing that's going to get you the points in the exam, and the thing that's going to make you fluent, is your vocabulary, not your grammar. So somehow, although all the textbooks are grammar based, because they think, yes, okay, week 1 we're going to do the present tense, week 2 present continuous, and then we go on. So we've got something to hold on to.
Yes.
But in fact, some of these grammar points are infinitely more work than one lesson or 1 week. Some of them really don't require any work at all. You've got these whole sort of swathes of chapter to plow through. I remember I was teaching in Greece.
Mm-hmm.
And I was teaching there they have these funny little colleges which are set up to supplement what happens in schools, because the schools really the teaching of English in schools is very poor.
Yes.
And they're called frontisteria. Frontizo means to assist or to help.
I see.
And in fact, they help take money from the parents, but the children come to these places and they do actually work, and the teachers work, and sometimes the same teachers that are actually teaching in the schools. And I got a complaint from a parent, and I was pulled up to the head teacher, and she said to me, "Why didn't you teach pages 46 and 47?" And I said, "Well, the main reason is because I wrote them, and I know it's rubbish." Part of the problem is that this teaching of English is dependent on sort of 19th century obsessions that English has to be as grammatical and as efficient as Latin, Greek, and German.
Yes.
And it's not. It's a conflation of so many different languages, and wherever you find a French word in English and a French phrase, that follows a French methodology, really, in the way it's used and the way it works. And when you find when you find a Greek word, that follows. Plurals are a great example.
Uh-huh.
The plural of a. How often do we talk about he has an agenda? No, he doesn't. He has an agendum. He has agenda, but no one would say that unless they're completely pompous. I do know people who are pompous enough to actually. He has an agendum. But the singular of agenda is agendum, the plural is agenda, and it follows classical rules.
Exactly, like criteria.
Yes, in criteria. I don't know very many people who use the word criterion. But if you can start to get students interested in this, I think that's fun. There are word lists.
Yeah.
And I think everybody should have a word list printed out on the classroom. They need to know words
Definitely.
like beneficial, conceptual, persistent, depression, countered, notwithstanding. They need to know these words, which are not immediately common, and they don't turn up in the textbooks.
Yes.
But I think if you get one of these lists and you just put it on the wall of every classroom, that's more valuable than having grammar or alphabets.
Exactly, because if the student can learn the formula and the actual system for constructing the sentence, and they know the formula for, like you said, for the French words or for the ones with the German prefixes or suffixes or whatever.
Just a word about reading here. You go to various schools and they will say, you should be reading the newspaper. The newspaper, yes, I think the newspaper is valuable, but the newspaper has some disadvantages as well. The newspaper always has a very limited vocabulary. At the moment, if you know the name Obama and massacre, then you probably ought to read almost everything in the first 4 or 5 pages.
I see, yeah.
It's got a very limited and predictable vocabulary.
Yeah.
Now, where do you find a vocabulary that is not predictable and is less limited? Well, you find it in a modern novel.
Good point.
Not Dickens. Never read Dickens unless you study it. I love Dickens immensely, but don't read it. Don't read Jane Austen. Sounding like to the 18th or 19th century, it won't be.
It's not practical, though. It's not useful.
It's not useful. Whatever your parents say about reading great literature, don't. You should read rubbish.
Yeah. Just keep going.
Don't read Harry Potter because it's too difficult, and that really is the apogee of rubbish. But yes, sorry. I love Harry Potter. Try and find rubbish. Try and find a good detective novel. Try and find good adventure novels.
Mm-hmm.
I always found Michael Crichton was great fun. The man who wrote Jurassic Park. But you'll find your own things, and whatever you're reading in your native language, try and do the same thing in English.
Of course, yeah.
If you like reading about baseball in Spanish, try and read about baseball in English. Actually, you probably won't be able to do that. But if you like,
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. It's basically just transfer. And a teacher who I interviewed before, he said basically put your life in English. And
yeah, you should do
even when you're having your breakfast, you should listen to the BBC or you should listen to the sports programs. But anything that you're listening to now in your native language, put it into English.
You should do something in English every day that you would normally do in Italian, German, Spanish, French.
Yes, definitely.
Every day. And you shouldn't be doing it for work. You should be doing it for pleasure. And the moment you realize you're doing something in English for pleasure, that would be the moment that you can take the IELTS successfully.
A very, very good point, that. Very well expressed, yeah. And there's the added bonus as well. If you're doing it for pleasure, obviously you're going to do it 10 times more than as if you think of it as work. Excellent point. And
even computer games. I mean, one hesitates to encourage them. I actually spent some time making them on one occasion. I can't play them. I can hardly switch on the computer. But even computer games, keep them in English.
Yes, I have one student. He plays Call of Duty, and his vocabulary is not your average vocabulary. It's like kill, run. What was the other one now? Surrender. And all this kind of vocabulary.
It's fine. He's got vocabulary.
Exactly.
There's another one called Age of Empires, which is very good, and people will improve their geography with that.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Whatever you do, in your own language, try and do a bit of that in English, and try and do it routinely. The other thing that's worth doing, though is terribly difficult to encourage if you've got no habit of doing it yourself in your own language, is to write a diary.
Yes.
The advantage of writing a diary in English is that very often your friends will not be as good at English as you are, and they won't be able to read it. And so you can really sort of throw yourself into it and be very truthful and honest and get rid of all the demons in your life.
Good point. That. No, I would just
and also be prepared to make mistakes in class and in what you're doing, in what you're writing. Just take it. The time to be daring is now in class, not in the exam.
Yes.
And try and make as many mistakes as you possibly can in class. If you think of it like the theatre, the classroom is your rehearsal period, and if you can't make mistakes then you're going to make mistakes in the exam.
Yeah.
And if you're an actor, if you don't make mistakes, if you don't get rid of all the rubbish in the rehearsal, then when you get in front of the audience, then the rubbish comes out then, and it's disastrous. So
exactly. Get it out of the system and just get
it out of the system.
anything that's niggling you or any points that you don't understand, back to front, inside out.
Yep.
Ask the teacher, get it out of the way in the classroom. Don't start and another thing, don't start experimenting with new things in the exam.
In the exam, exactly. The reason people do that in the exam is because it's probably the first time they've really done any work. So try and do the work. Try and do some work before you actually get to the exam itself.
Yeah.
Make sure the exam is not the first time you start doing serious work and you start concentrating. There's another thing that's worth mentioning here, and this is a bit controversial. I once asked somebody, is there any particular music you listen to when you're writing an essay? And this person said to me, are you completely crazy? I can't do two things at once. And it's very valuable advice. If you're listening to music while you're writing, while trying to do two things at once, you cannot.
Yeah.
So that's number one. Your mind may be much better than mine, of course, and you may be able to do two or three things at once. I can't. But number two, from a practical point of view, when you get into the exam, there is no music. And you can't have music in the exam. So simply from a practical point of view of preparing for getting into the exam, do your writing in silence, because that's what you will be doing when you're in the exam.
Yes, exactly.
So switch everything off, focus, actually do some work before you get into the exam, because then you will be really practicing what you're going to be doing when you when you're being tested.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Somebody was telling me about their daughter who had concentration problems, and he went to see how she was studying, and she had Skype switched on, she had Messenger switched on, she had some music blaring out, and then she had her phone in one hand, like texting somebody, and at the same time she was trying to write an essay, and he was just like, "Come on." Crazy how he's going to do anything in these conditions.
You can't do all this at the same time. So you have to set yourself up, but don't try to be realistic. If you plan your own time, then you know what the parameters are. It's not good enough just simply to say, "Oh, my mother's told me I've got to go upstairs and work now," because it won't happen. You've got to decide when is the best time for me to work. And if you can learn this now, then you'll have it for the rest of your life. But some people realize, I'm a morning person. I work terribly well in the mornings.
Yeah.
Many teenagers, they've got a problem with their circadian rhythms. It's something to do with the middle of your brain, and the timing function goes a bit wrong. And so really, as a teenager, you want to go to bed at 2 o'clock in the morning. You want to get up at 10:30, and adults think that you should be on their own rhythms, and they don't understand you, and it's quite true. But even within that, you know that there are certain times of the day when you are functioning well, and there are certain times of the day when you're not functioning well. So when you want to be creative, when you actually want to do something serious, that's the time when you write. When you want to do something which is boring, and which is just simply routine, then you do that at a time when you've not got so much energy.
Yeah, good point.
And you divide your work into that work which is routine, which doesn't require so much effort or so much commitment from you, where in fact you probably could even switch on the radio or have your Skype on or something, or your phone in your hand, then you need to find the time when you are really focused, when your mind is functioning, and that's the time when you do your essay writing.
Exactly.
Sadly, that's the time people often go and chat to their friends, and I'm sure they're incredibly stimulating and exciting when they're chatting to their friends. But that's the time actually that you should be working.
That's great advice. It's a question of knowing. Another way to put it would be to know yourself, whether you are a morning person, an afternoon person, or an evening person. Some people work.
It doesn't matter. Yeah.
Yeah, and just adapt your own study schedule to what kind of person when you work best. And another thing, just a side note, that a lot of people, myself included, that when I approach a task, sometimes it's really difficult to get all the thoughts in order and to sort of like avoid the distractions, you know. So one thing that I find that really helps to focus is if I sit down and then just do something similar to what you mentioned before, and it's like a mind dump, and just write everything, just empty my mind of everything. Absolutely. Write it down for about 10 minutes, just constant writing, whatever. I've got to take the rubbish out, I've got to send this email, write it all out, put it on paper.
Lists, absolutely.
Exactly, and then start the task in hand, and that works wonders.
I was going to say something else about priorities, which I think a lot of students don't realise.
Yeah.
When it comes to your energy, there's a question: do you actually want to have maximum energy when you're attending a class? When you're in a class, is that the time when you really need to be putting in all your effort? Actually, the answer is no. You need to put in a certain amount of effort during a class, but the real effort is in your homework, which is where you're digesting what the class has taught you.
Yes.
Now, what people tend to do is do it the other way around. If they want to impress, the teacher. Well, actually, the person you impress in the end is your examiner.
Yeah.
The person you don't actually have to impress your teacher that much. Your teacher is like your doctor.
Yeah.
Your teacher should be there to be able to see your weak points as well. You don't need to impress your teacher every day, but you do need to have that energy to do the homework properly. The homework is not some sort of is not some afterthought. The homework is what you're working for.
There's one question that I haven't asked yet, and it's would you recommend employing sophisticated words and risking the comprehension of the article, or going for basic ones and being crystal clear? Which approach do you recommend, or even just a blended approach?
Right. Well, there's a general point that I can make first of all.
Yeah.
And that is in most languages other than English, the longer sentence and the longer word suggests that you are more in control and more academic.
Yes.
Okay. In English, well, I was taught when I was about 7 years old that brevity was very important. I didn't understand it when I was 7. Now I think I probably do understand it, but the idea is, can you explain something intelligently to an intelligent 7-year-old? And if you think about that all the time in English, that's how you should be writing. You should be writing for an intelligent 7-year-old. And even complex issues like nuclear physics, you should be able to express in English in intelligent language. Now, where's the problem? Remember that English is made up of at least 2 languages. There's Anglo-Saxon, which is the old language which lies underneath modern English. Yeah. And then there's the Latinate, the classical stuff which English has stolen from Italy, from Greece, and from France.
Yeah.
Okay. So and that came through with in 1066 when William the Conqueror comes into England, and he brings all this French language with him, with its with its Latin and Greek origins. Now, the point about this is that there's almost always 2 words for everything. Let's take at the moment I'm sitting facing a computer. I'm sitting in front of my desk, my table. My bureau, from which we would get the word bureaucracy. Bureaucracy is kratos, means the rule, and bureau is the desk. So it's the rule of the desk. Aristocracy, rule of the best. Democracy, rule of the
demographic.
Demographic. But so there's always 2 or 3 words for everything in English. Now, what you should aim for is to try and get the simplest word that does the job. And ideally, we want something which is Anglo-Saxon. Now, Anglo-Saxon is a very interesting language. We all think, oh my goodness, I don't know any Anglo-Saxon. Anglo-Saxon is a subject at university. And in Oxford, for example, it was taught by J.R.R. Tolkien, who was the man who wrote Lord of the Rings, and everybody knows that.
I see.
So Tolkien was a professor of Anglo-Saxon. That was his subject. And Anglo-Saxon lies behind modern English. Now, we all know Anglo-Saxon because if we drop a brick on our foot, then we come out with a word which we hear on the street with 4 letters. That is an Anglo-Saxon word, and you can find it in Geoffrey Chaucer. You can find it in Beowulf. You can find it in the great poetry of Anglo-Saxon, and you can find it on the street.
And it's the one that rhymes with book.
Well, it may be. I have no idea. But there are many of them, and these words. So if you've got a simple monosyllabic word, a word which like that, just 1 syllable, that's an Anglo-Saxon word, and that's the sort of word we want to be aiming for when we're writing clearly. A word which has got 20 syllables in it, that we want to try and avoid unless we absolutely need it. That's why phrasal verbs are so valuable. Phrasal verbs are generally Anglo-Saxon combinations.
Right.
And the phrasal verbs, sadly, in English as a foreign language, in IELTS and stuff, we learn the phrasal verbs as an afterthought after we've done all the other chapters. We have a chapter on phrasal verbs, and we should be learning the phrasal verbs as we progress through our lessons. So, for example, when I was in Greece, there was this wonderful word, synogazome. And synogazome, in the Oxford Greek-English Dictionary, translates, there are 3 translations, cooperate, collaborate, and work together.
I see.
When I was being offered jobs, people would say, will you collaborate with us? Will you cooperate with me? Well, cooperate and collaborate in English have got quite negative connotations.
Yeah.
Cooperate means to do something I don't want to do, and collaborate means to work with the enemy. So the only expression which is completely clean and which I can use in all contexts is work together. But because that's a phrasal verb, and because I've been told or because many students have been told that phrasal verbs are something that you use colloquially,
Yes.
people think oh yes, I should be using one of these long words because it sounds grander, because it sounds better, but it's actually generally wrong because it's got a very specific meaning and it's very easy to get it wrong.
I
So,
see. But I was under. Sorry, go on.
sorry.
I was just going to say I was under the impression that when you write academically, traditionally the academic text in English were written in Latin, so
Yes.
we should therefore follow sort of like the tradition and use the
Well,
Latin words and not use the phrasal verbs.
yeah, this is a subject of a lot of debate at the moment,
Yeah.
and and the broad principle today is that you should write as clearly as possible.
Yes, this seems a more modern approach.
It's a more modern approach, and so that means the phrasal verb
It's
has been pulled into the centre
it's
of
come back into fashion.
it's absolutely central,
I
and
see.
and the issue is that these Latinate words, it's so easy to get them wrong. It's so easy to misuse them,
Yeah.
and because they all have very precise meanings.
Right.
They're precision manufactured words, whereas the phrasal verb is a much broader thing, and we can use it in so many different contexts. That's why it's so difficult to learn phrasal verbs, because they have so many applications.
Yes.
But
And
rejoice in that and learn them. You know, the phrasal verb is your friend, and so
okay.
the first thing, going back to your question, should we be using complex language or simple language? Always try to be as simple as possible. Only use complex language where you have to be technical and specific, and make sure, particularly in the exam, that you're using complex words which you've already tested out. So during your class, use complex words. Have a dictionary by you. Particularly have an English dictionary. Particularly have a dictionary which has got etymology. Etymology is a study of where words come from.
Yes. Yes.
Doesn't matter what your own native language is. If it's Spanish, if it's Italian, if it's German, we have stolen most of your words. So go back and have a look and look at what is the Spanish word and what's the word we've stolen from you.
Yeah.
Now, have a debate and find out if we use the word in the same context. We probably don't, because we stole it 400 years ago or 500 years ago. And that word now in Spanish has slightly changed its meaning from the meaning it had when we stole it. And we've used it and taken it off. So we've got this division where words divide from their meaning. And so we may use a word which you find very familiar in a different way to the way that you use it.
I
Words
see.
meaning,
Yeah.
and when we steal a word, we may misunderstand it.
Yeah, and I think that's the origin of when you are doing these languages. It's the origin of false friends.
Yep, absolutely. But that's where the classroom comes in useful.
Yeah.
Enjoy these words, play around with these words. Only use complex words in an exam if you understand them. And use the classroom to play around with these. It doesn't matter if you get the word wrong in the classroom. Native speakers do. I mean, when I was 10, I thought the word tedious meant tiring. It means boring. And
Yeah.
my mother, who was a bit grand, had this really rather special party, and she invited lots of very important people. And she allowed me to stay up for it. And at some point she said to me, so Timothy, are you enjoying yourself? And I being a sort of intelligent little 10-year-old, and I wanted to shout, but yes, I am really, but I do find it a bit tedious. And she said, if you find it tedious, you can go to bed. And because I was too grand myself to admit that I didn't know what the word tedious meant, I had to go to bed.
So,
You use the opportunity to learn how to make mistakes in class And then only use these complex words if you understand them. Otherwise, try always to express things in simple language, and simple language is your friend.
Yes.
And also don't try and do long sentences. A long sentence is not something that's necessary and is foreign to English.
Yep, good point. Or even just, I was going to say, you could even mix it up. At least, so you can show the examiner, how to use those connecting words.
Absolutely. The best of all situations is where you have a mixture, because this is good English. The best of all situations where you have a mixture of Anglo-Saxon and Latinate classical words. So you have a mixture of longer words and these shorter punchy words. And you have a mixture of longer sentences and short sentences. If you want to make a point, use a short sentence.
Yes, good point. For example.
And try punctuation. One bit of punctuation which is always overlooked in English as a foreign language is a semicolon. The semicolon acts like a full stop, but it doesn't finish anything completely. You can keep going. Semicolon.
And we use that in the middle of not in the middle, but it's a so you said it was a full stop, but we carry on going.
You can carry on with the same idea. So a semicolon is very useful in building up a paragraph. So you can have sentences about the same idea, put a semicolon between them. So if you have a list of where you want to identify three things, firstly, I love the sunshine, semicolon. I also love rain and windy weather, semicolon. Most importantly, I love snow, full stop.
I see. Okay.
That would be a possibility.
Just got one more question. What's the for learning new words and new vocabulary? What's probably the best technique you've got from your days of teaching? What was really effective for the students?
Well, I'm still teaching, but
sorry.
little bit. The most effective thing. And as a teacher, I always felt that it was important to throw in some bizarre words into my lessons, whatever happened. Just to let people know that they exist. But you cannot learn a new word in a list.
Mm-hmm.
You have to learn a new word by using it in a sentence. And if the sentence that you, the student, create, then that's going to be something that you remember.
See.
And the funnier, the better. So if you can be wacky and peculiar, then you're going to remember these new words.
That's an amazing point, actually. Yeah. Just one last question, then we can finish up. Unless you've got anything else to say on that.
I never have anything to say.
Okay. I see. Well, I was just going.
Thanks for listening to IELTSPodcast.com.